Hello and welcome to My Career in Data, a podcast where we discuss with industry leaders and experts how they have built their careers. I'm your host, Shannon Kemp, and today we're talking to Steve MacLauchlan from Ippon Technologies.
With a robust catalog of courses offered on demand and industry-leading live online sessions throughout the year, the Dataversity Training Center is your launchpad for career success. Browse the complete catalog at training.dataversity.net and use code DVTalks for 20% off your purchase.
Hello and welcome. My name is Shannon Kemp and I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Dataversity, and this is My Career in Data, a Dataversity Talks podcast dedicated to learning from those who have careers in data management, to understand how they got there, and to be talking with people who help make those careers a little bit easier. To keep up to date in the latest in data management education, go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Today, we are joined by Steve MacLauchlan, the head of data at Ippon Technologies. And normally, this is where a podcast host would read a short bio of the guest, but in this podcast, your bio is what we're here to talk about. Steve, hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited for you to be here. I'm excited to see you in person at EDW.
Just a few short weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I can't believe we're in person again for this conference. It's been a while.
Oh. It's so much better. It's so much fun. I love it so much. It's like my favorite time of the year.
Me too. So tell me, you are the head of data at Ippon Technologies. So tell me about Ippon Technologies. What is it? What is the company? And what do they do?
Yeah. So Ippon is a business transformation consulting firm. And we do that through really 4 different avenues, 3 technical and 1 more strategic. And those 3 technical avenues are data, of course. That's why I'm here. Big data geek, product engineering, which is more like custom application development, and cloud infrastructure. So we have a lot of DevOps and cloud developers. And then kind of the glue that holds all of that together is our strategy and product practice. So we typically come in all the way from early discovery. We love getting to know a business and saying, hey, what is it you're trying to do? Before you even think about technology, what are you trying to do? What things are you trying to transform about your business? And then how can we enable that? And then our technical teams, we hire experts who can hit the ground running and say, okay, great. You're trying to have a faster time to market. So we're going to help you move to the cloud in whatever ways and migrate off your old infrastructure and, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of fun. I've loved it.
I love that. So tell me then, what do you do for Ippon Technologies as the head of data? What's your typical work week look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will say we do a lot of empathy interviews. So as we're getting to know businesses, we do interviews. And one of my colleagues introduced this concept of explain what you do without using your title. And that was one of those moments for me. I was like, wow, people's titles rarely have anything to do with what they actually do on the day-to-day, does it? So, really, I think there's 3 things that my job entails. And the first is overseeing delivery. So, all projects, ultimately, they roll up to me. So if a client's unhappy or more often than not, if a client's really happy, that escalates up to me, and I get to, get to really revel in and enjoy that. But ultimately, I oversee delivery, whatever that might look like. If we need a little extra lift here, or whatever, I can kind of jump in and help solve that. The second piece is I oversee all the people management on the practice. So all of the managers report up to me, and sort of everyone's career paths and growth, that all sort of rolls up to me. And then finally, the strategy of the practice, right? What are the things we're going to focus on as we are learning in the marketplace and things are changing all the time? What are we going to do? What are we going to focus on? What partnerships are we going to go after? And how are we going to stay competitive that way? So that's really kind of my high level, ideal day-to-day. In reality, you wind up being kind of chief firefighter, and that's a lot of fun. I'm okay with that.
I love it. So let me ask a little bit more too. You have a whole department or organization developed or dedicated to data, who works closely with the tech teams. How does that work?
Yeah, great question. By and large, our data practice is very technical. So it's a lot of data engineers and data architects.
Mhm.
And then we kind of partner with our strategists to help lay out a vision, lay out roadmaps for organizations. But ultimately, we don't want to do, there's really two things we don't want to do. And sometimes I
Yeah.
think defining who you are by what you're not is beneficial. The first thing we don't want to do is just hand over PowerPoint decks and be like, okay, we're done.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
consultants and here's your PowerPoint deck. Okay, that's part of it, developing a strategy. Nor do we want to be, the traditional kind of commoditized staffing, where it's like, how many developers do you need? Okay, 3 developers, great, we're going to do that. We really take this holistic, we call it a team in a box. The idea is, hey, they're one of your teams and they're holistic and they're going to come in and solve this. And our sort of unofficial motto is from discovery to delivery. So the idea is we've got professionals at every stage of a project life cycle who can help envision it, help you articulate what the business needs and why, help you roadmap that out and scope what needs to be done, and then a team of technical experts to actually do that. So at the end of that, you have a cohesive transformation. We've put metrics around it, success measures to make sure that we've done that. So that's what I love about it, is I get to be a part of the entire process. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, you really can see tangible results. And we start there, right? We start with what would make this successful? How are we going to prove that we've done what we've set out to do? And so that's kind of step one, is what are the success metrics?
Yeah, I love it. Very important to establish.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're in the world of data governance, right? A lot of those things don't work sometimes, and sometimes people jump in before they're ready. And, when it works, it's amazing, and when it doesn't work, people are kind of like, "Yep, that's how it goes."
So tell me, Steve, is this when you were very young, say 6 years old, was this the dream? I'm going to be the head of data at Ippon Technologies and manage this massive organization and team.
Oh, definitely not. No, I was pretty sure I was going to be a Jedi when I was 6. I think that was the goal.
Yeah.
Maybe a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think, like a lot of folks in data, I probably had a pretty circuitous route to where I'm at. Maybe that's my generation and kind of older. I think younger people know what data is now and they're excited about it, but I didn't even know what data meant when I was a kid. So, I have an interesting way I got into it. And I think this is relevant to consulting, since I'm in consulting now. I was in a band and I put off college and we were touring. So we were touring the country playing music.
Yeah. What did you play?
And I played guitar and I sang, if you can believe it.
I can believe it.
I can kind of carry a tune, but not so much anymore. I'm a little out of practice. So unfortunately, you're not going to get to hear me sing today. And so you learn so much then. I was booking tours. I was dealing with things as they came up, constantly pivoting, constantly repairing the van. It's not, we weren't making so much money that our van was nice. We had a van that was not good. And I learned a lot about automobile repair in those days. But you learn a lot about things that kind of impact you later. So anyways, after about 2 years of that, we were kind of like, we're like doing okay, but we're not going to be the Rolling Stones, right? So we kind of need to figure out what we're going to do. And I'd always liked computers. So I got into software development, right? And at the time, that was kind of new and exciting. People were, the web was brand new. In fact, I remember, we were using MapQuest and Atlas to do our tours, long before any of that existed. So I got into software development, and my first ever job was doing practice management software for like hospitals and doctors' offices. And then I got this project that came down from our chief operating officer, and he said, they're asking for patient demographics. Can you build me a data cube? And I was like, I don't even know what that means. I've never written a line of SQL in my life. I don't know what a cube is, and so I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. And I think after a couple of weeks, I remember distinctly working on it and kind of seeing the results and having this epiphany where I was like, whoa, this is actually like the most important thing that companies could probably be doing right now. And I didn't have the words for it or the vocabulary for it that I have now, but I remember that feeling of like, there's so much information and insight that can be gleaned from this. But software development, I love it. To all my friends who are software developers, it's awesome. But it's kind of just moving and manipulating data, right? Like at the end of the day, I just was like, this is it. This is so cool. So shortly thereafter, I found myself working for a very small consulting firm out here on the East Coast, and I worked with Dr. Peter Aiken. So
Yeah.
just learned so much so fast
Yeah.
working with Peter that
Yeah.
finally, like, all those concepts that I thought were really cool had voice, and
Yeah.
just like drank from the fire hose. And if you know Peter, he's always willing to explain something.
Yes.
He's always willing to teach. So I feel very fortunate that I got that education with him. So haven't looked back since. Both consulting and data, my two loves. So there it is.
I love that. That's great. I interviewed Peter. Of course, I knew Peter for a long time, but he was one of the
Yeah,
first guests on the podcast.
yeah.
He's been doing a webinar series with us longer
Oh,
than
I
anybody
know.
else.
Many years ago, I helped him. I would introduce him on those webinars. It was a long
Yeah.
time ago. Long time ago.
So, so what was your biggest lesson so far in your career as you've gone through this journey into
Mm.
data?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, and I think this is still a problem people talk about all the time. These heady concepts that data people get don't translate as well, right? So I
Hmm.
kind of touched on, hey, sometimes data governance doesn't stick. And I remember being frustrated with that. I remember delivering a project to an unnamed government agency, and it was, hey, this is what we think you need to do for data governance. And one of the people in the room had his feet on the table and fell asleep. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going nowhere.
Yeah.
But then I was on this project with this wonderful woman named Sarah Willivett. And she had devised this way to really communicate the benefits of things down to a very granular level. She had found a way to truly articulate value, not just kind of say it and say, hey, this is
Yeah.
valuable, and in these kind of intangible ways. She had found an amazing way to say, no, if we don't do this, this is what it's costing us. And if we do this, this is what we're going to save or earn or gain for every little project. That's where she started. And it changed my whole philosophy on my approach to data management, data governance. It really, to me, was one of those just aha moments of like, wow, this is not just read it off a PowerPoint and
Right.
execute. This is about change management, and it's about relationships, and it's about proving this out and kind of grassroots, growth for these programs. So to me, that I still think back to that project all these years back, and I'm like, that's my guiding light. Are we doing that? Are we just delivering a PowerPoint, or have we really showed people what this is doing for them? And if we're not, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that story. It's so true, right? Because data isn't just numbers, right? It's just
Right.
it's you really have to communicate. You have to have the whole
Yeah.
package.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's hard to do. And I think it's hard to really articulate the value. Again, I think most data people, like, we just kind of get it intrinsically, and we can say all day long, this is
Yeah.
really valuable. This is worth doing. It's about people, process, technology, and kind of those platitudes that we fall back on because they do ring true for us. But
Yeah.
there's so much more to actually getting that inside other people's heads. That there's probably an entire PhD in psychology for getting people to do data governance that would be interesting. But
I think that would be a good study. I think we should
that's
fund
right.
that.
Yeah, let's do it. You heard it here first. Dataversity presents.
I love. Is there something that you did to hone that skill further?
Yeah, good question. I think that just kind of comes par for the course with consulting. You really kind of wind up learning what makes people tick and getting to know different personalities, and you start to
Mhm.
see some patterns emerging. I remember, not long after that project, learning about things like Myers-Briggs and those types of things that I don't fully ascribe to all the time. But they're really helpful as an exercise to be like,
Yeah.
okay, let me think about what Shannon needs to hear to make sure that
Yeah.
she supports this, as opposed to Peter. What does Peter need to
Right.
hear to really support this? And that is a thing I think about a lot. As I'm helping my clients often internally sell many of these capabilities or concepts, you have to really think about what's in it for people, and how do they need to be
Yeah.
communicated with, and how do you kind of manage that relationship and communication.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of those, just over the years I've gotten better at it, and something I think a lot about. I try to be really intentional about that thought process.
I love that.
Visit dataversity.net and expand your knowledge with thousands of articles and blogs written by industry experts, plus free live and on-demand webinars covering the complete data management spectrum. While you're there, subscribe to the weekly newsletter so you'll never miss a beat.
So tell me, Steve, so having worked with data for a while, and having worked with Peter even, what is your definition of data and how do you work with it? We've kind of talked about that a little bit, but maybe.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it's one I think about a lot. And philosophically, I think, you can get as deep, I guess, as you really want to. But to me, I think 90% of businesses now are their data. I just think that's the way. It's maybe it's a little bit of like a ship of Theseus, like people can leave, but the business doesn't change, or new markets can be entered. But fundamentally, what is a business besides all of their collection of data in its entirety? And that to me is actually pretty like eye-opening to think about. And even down to a lawn care business, like how do you do it? How do you maintain your equipment? Who are your customers? How are you marketing? It just is the business now. I really believe that. So without getting into, hey, data is information, I'll spare our listeners that because they probably have their own ideas. But to me, I'm like, businesses are data now. They are, and not everyone manages it well. We all know that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too heady, like too lofty to get into. But I'm like, yeah, maybe just everything is actually data now in our lives.
It really is, right? I don't think there's much we can't quantify anymore.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And I assume that you use it a lot in your own business as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we try to make data-driven decisions, and we are a relatively small business, so we have a lot of the same pains as our customers in some ways, and of course, in other ways, we're far more advanced. And I get the benefit being in consulting. I see so many organizations, right? I get to see sort of the 30,000 foot view, and my favorite thing is every single client I think I've probably ever had come at me with like, man, we've got these problems you won't believe. And by the end of their explanation, I'm like, you have the problems that everybody has. This is pretty widespread. Yeah, there's a handful of organizations who have really, raised the bar or really disrupted the way things are being done. But those companies aren't coming into consulting firms and probably aren't listening to podcasts on how to do things better. And I think that's 95% of organizations are just not there. And many of the problems are really common.
Yeah, we hear a lot of the same problems as well all the time.
Sure.
That people are trying to solve in our webinars and just general people reaching out we need help with.
And the problems, I mean, there's a lot of solutions out there. There's a lot of ways to approach it. And this is where, kind of coming back to what I was saying earlier, I think in many cases, we kind of know how to fix those problems, but the challenge is bringing people along, getting people to see that, getting people to understand it. And I know how frustrating that is for data people out there in their organizations who are like, I'm telling you, we got to do this. I know this. I can see the risks. I can see the benefits of doing this. I can see the risk for not doing this. But so much of that I think is missing from our practice in a lot of cases is that change management, that relationship building. And when clients now ask me, hey, who should I put in for a data governance role? I'm like, find the most boisterous, like affable, friendly person you can find who's also bullheaded and is not going to take no for an answer, but is going to do it in such a way that you're like, this person is my best friend and they're giving me some hard advice. Because I think you got to have that kind of personality now to get that to stick.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. Yeah, I think it's so true. I've seen, those personalities work really well in data governance roles and as leads of data governance.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And you'll see them at Dataversity. A lot of times the people who are talking about where they've seen success, you're like, oh yeah, I know how you're seeing success.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So do you see the importance of data management and the number of jobs working with data increasing or decreasing over the next 10 years, and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that. I love getting into predictions. I think we'll see new jobs emerging.
Mhm.
I think everyone wants in on the AI pie right now. I think we will reach the plateau of productivity for that, once the
Yeah,
hype kind of dies down, but it is useful. It is being used right now. It's amazing.
yeah,
And people are forging ahead full steam without, kind of doing some of the good foundational work, of course. So I
right.
do think there's going to be a place for data management. I think some of the more technical roles may be taken over by low code, no code, AI driven solutions. I don't think it's ever going to fully go away. I think it's just going to see a little bit of a shift and abstract upwards a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What I do think we will see different is, and hey, I already said it, data is the business. I think every role increasingly is going to be more data centric, more data driven, more reliant on data. And so I hate to use the term data literacy because I think it puts people defensive, but I think every job out there is going to need to be raising the bar on data literacy. And so I do think we're going to see an increase in that regard. There might not be new roles or different roles, but they're going to shift to where there's going to be a much more heavy reliance on data. And that has to come with understanding. So I think it's a bright future for data, right?
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree with anything you say. I think we're seeing the same thing. Like you say, we've seen so many companies try to stand up AI and machine learning
Right.
and went, oh, whoops, we forgot to prep the data. Oh, whoops, we need a data model. Oh, whoops, we
Yeah.
need to hire somebody who knows how to build data models.
Yeah. That's
We're seeing
right.
a
That's
lot of
right.
yeah, which is great, which is amazing.
Right.
We've seen it create jobs and create importance around data governance, even
Yeah, I think it will.
especially.
And
Hmm.
I mean, even internally, as we were increasingly using AI tools, I
Hmm.
kind of had that wake up in the middle of the night moment. I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't actually have an AI policy. This was a couple weeks ago. That's
Oh,
now solved. But I kind of had that like, oh my God, that just like slipped under the radar. We got so
yeah,
excited about all this stuff, but we
right.
don't, you know,
Yeah.
so yeah. So I do think everyone's so excited, we're moving fast, and that's great, and you have to be careful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The other hot topic coming up is ethics, right?
Oh, sure.
Especially around AI. So
Absolutely.
data ethics. Yeah. So, oh, love it. So what advice then would you give to people who are looking to get into a career in data management?
Oh, that's a great question. I really think if you understand the basics of
Mhm.
data management, and there are so many wonderful books and resources out there. I have multiple copies of the Dimbach in my house. Robert Seiner's books are so good. You can learn the how. But
Yeah.
as I already mentioned before, I really think there's a huge piece on learning how change management works at an organization,
Mhm.
learning how to form those relationships, and being really good at pushing your ideas in a way that resonates with people. And that's harder, I think, to teach, right? But I think it's something you can improve on, something you can learn and get better at. And so I think that's for some people, a missing tool in the tool belt.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest piece of advice: is data is the business, and
Hmm.
businesses are people and their relationships. And if you want to move the needle there, you got to learn how to navigate that space.
Yeah. I think that's the big life challenge, right?
Always,
For
always.
anything. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
I
I'm
love
sorry.
that.
I feel sorry for introverts in data management. I know there's a lot of them. I'm not an introvert at all, but I sometimes sit back. I'm like, I bet that's really challenging to wake up and be like, okay, I got to go make relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But it's possible. We can do it.
It's very possible. I've
Yeah.
known so many introverts who are so thoughtful and caring and form great relationships. They just need to go home and be in silence for a couple hours to recharge after that.
Exactly. Well, Steve, I would be neglectful if I didn't ask, if somebody wanted to look up the services of Ippon Technologies, where would they go?
Yeah, great. Number one is ipponusa.com, of course, our website. We have a great LinkedIn presence. We post lots and lots of blogs. We just surpassed 430 blogs, I think, on various topics. So a lot of great content out there. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I try to post really regularly when I'm not totally snowed under. And hey, I come to at least 1 or 2 Dataversity events every year. So come find me and let's chit chat about board games. I'm a huge board game nerd. So
Oh, I love
there's now
that.
a little group of us that get together and talk about all things board gaming at Dataversity events. So
Oh, I didn't know that. How fun.
yeah.
And just for everybody, Ippon is ippon.com.
That's right. Yep. IPPONUSA.com.
Perfect. And I will get those links for me, and we'll post it on the page of the podcast for everybody to find you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. And to all of our listeners out there, if you'd like to keep up to date in the latest in podcasts and the latest in data management education, go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Until next time. Thank you for listening to Dataversity Talks, a podcast brought to you by Dataversity. Subscribe to our newsletter for podcast updates and information about our free educational webinars at dataversity.net/subscribe.